Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we like to say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. I want to begin as usual by welcoming all of you here, all that you bring with you, your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, everything that helps make you who you are. And this includes, of course, those of you who are in the room with us, whether you're here for the first time or a regular on Sunday mornings, as well as the many of you who are streaming with us, and of course those who are Zooming with us as well. It's great to have such a girth to our communities these days. So welcome to one and all. I have a couple of announcements I want to make, and a little bit lengthy, so bear with me. But I want to put in a plug for next Sunday's service. It's a really important one. We're going to, next Sunday, February 26th, we'll have our former City Council President, Ben Stuckert, will be here with Gavin Cooley, who's actually served 18 years as Spokane's Chief Financial Officer, to talk about a subject that they are both passionate about and very involved with, solutions to homelessness. So that's going to be during our services, and then afterwards at 12:30 Pacific time, Ben and Gavin are going to continue this important conversation with a panel discussion that will include an opportunity for questions and answers. That will be live streamed, so for those who are watching and want to stream it, we intend to live stream it, providing our technology holds up. So I do want to say thanks. I wrote down here Quest speaker team, but it's guest speaker team, but maybe Quest speaker team is just as good, right? Thanks to our guest speaker team for continuing to bring such knowledgeable and important presenters to us to help us understand what's going on in our community and how to address some of the issues that concern us all, and to our Social Justice Coordinating Council for planning the panel discussion afterwards. So that again will be next Sunday. The following Sunday is our annual Partner Church service, which celebrates our relationship we've had with our partner church in Felșaracos, Romania, ever since the Cold War ended and we were able to actually get back in touch with folks in that part of the world. And just a short time ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing Reverend Elad Szabó, who is dean of one of the 7 districts in the Hungarian Unitarian Church, which is what they call their wider association, which happens to be the same district that our partner church in Felșaracos is in. So I interviewed him, and that's going to be part of our service next week. And I must tell you, this man's absolutely brilliant, very articulate. He's been to the U.S. and taught at one of our seminaries and has a really wonderful knowledge of the similarities and the differences between American Unitarianism and Eastern Unitarianism, which really emerged separately and developed in different ways. So I think you're going to just find that very interesting, plus a surprise bit of information about our partner church that I think you're going to think is just wonderful. I won't spill the beans now, but something that I'll let Reverend Szabó talk about. So that'll be our partner church on Sunday, March 5th. Okay. Now, I do want to welcome our Zoom attendees because they are able to interact a bit with us on Sunday mornings. And great to have all of you here. I should turn around and say, wow, we've got a good crowd today. Who is hosting today?
Terry, I'm the social host, and we have, I think, 14 or 13. We have the person whose name is not Ben the Wire iPad, but she is on her iPad instead of her computer. Anyways, we're glad to be here, and we've been primed with some questions, so looking forward to the sermon.
Great, yeah. So we'll do a conversations with Todd today, And what I will do is kind of rotate back and forth between the folks who are on Zoom and the folks who are in the room, and so we can hopefully get to lots of questions. You know, I'm long-winded, but more on that later. Let's take just a couple of moments here at the start of our service to say hi to one another. If you're in the room, feel free to say hi to someone you know, someone you don't know. If you're joining us, please, for the first time, please don't be too shy. And yeah, you guys can chat on Zoom. Send us a text if you're streaming.
Well, welcome everybody, and is there...
We're going to be singing our main piece right after the invocation because there's no reading. So we wanted more time for the sermon. So let's look at the yeah, so there's no reading. So we will come right after the invocation. I might say after the invitation. Okay. I'll go tell Todd that I will.
At some point during the week, the school next door used the sanctuary for a play that they put on, and so not everything is quite back the way it was, including our gong. So there it is. I found it. So I hope you got to enjoy your longer than usual visit. Let me catch my breath. And nevertheless, we will still have social hour following our service, so you can visit even more then. But we are going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
For the opening words, an excerpt from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. "Good morning," said Bilbo, and he meant it. The sun was shining and the grass was very green. But Gandalf looked at him from under long bushy eyebrows that stuck out farther than the brim of his shady hat. "What do you mean?" he said. "Do you wish me a good morning, or mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or that you feel good this morning, or that it's a morning to be good on?" "All of them at once," said Bilbo, "and a very fine morning for a pipe of tobacco out of doors, into the bargain." After a bit, Bilbo said, "Good morning. We don't want any adventures here, thank you. You might try over the hill or across the water." By this he meant that the conversation was at an end. "What a lot of things you do use good morning for," said Gandalf. "Now you mean you want to get rid of me, and that it won't be good till I move off."
Please rise as you're willing and able for the first in-service song of the morning, "Do You Hear?" Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights on the plain, in the vale on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, through the roar, through the rush, through the flow, through the crush? Do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear a cry, fear or still, hear a heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling trill, in your soul, from the place where you stand to the outermost strand. Do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear, all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers? They are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear,
We'll now kindle our candles of care for those most on our hearts and minds this morning. I did not get any specific requests for candles this week, but I do want to begin, as we have been, on behalf of the people of the Ukraine and the rest of that region of the world that are being most impacted by the violence there. One of the things you'll hear from Reverend Zabo next week is the impact that the war is having on their part of the world, in Romania, Hungary, Turkey, who are obviously being impacted by refugees, and as well as just the closeness of all of that violence and destruction. And also a candle for the people of Turkey and Syria, who are still and will be for a long time suffering from the impacts of one of the most devastating earthquakes I can ever remember. So let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we do have a special collection this month. It is on behalf of Kat. Kat is stands for Compassionate Addiction Treatment, a local organization that provides compassionate, holistic care to people suffering from substance abuse disorders in a safe and therapeutic environment. CAT focuses on removing the barriers to treatment so that people can better concentrate on recovery and live up to their fullest potential. It has a particular focus on people experiencing homelessness combined with addiction. So I'm sure this is something we all care about. If this ministry speaks to you, I encourage you to use the envelope in your order of service. I hope you did get envelopes. Thank you. I like to always check. And that way we'll know that it's for the special collection. No need to lick that envelope. We will reuse it if we can. And if you'd like to contribute and you're streaming with us or otherwise online, you're always welcome to go onto our website and make a donation and just indicate that it's for today's special collection. Thanks again for your generosity in advance. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. Thank you. It's beautiful. All right, it is now time for our story for all ages. And even though we don't usually have children attending our first service, we have lots of people who are young at heart who enjoy these stories, so we'll force them upon you anyway. And as usual, I brought a friend because I'm such a lousy storyteller that I always need help. And this is one of everybody's special friends, of course. It is Winnie the Pooh. Hello, Winnie the Pooh. Hello. Yes, so what brings you here all the way from the 100-acre wood today? Well, I've come to borrow some honey, if you please. You come to borrow some honey? Yes, and I'd like to have the honey pot, too. You need honey and a honey pot. Did something happen to your honey pot? Well, you see, Christopher Auden gave me a taste, then put the rest on a shelf and asked me to wait until later to eat it. I see. Put it up where you couldn't reach it. Yes, that's right. So you have a honey pot and some honey, but you're just not able to reach it? Well, not exactly. You see, Tigger came to visit and offered to dance out and get the honey tot for me. I see. Tigger, you mean the tiger who has a spring in his tail and is always bouncing around wildly wherever he goes. I see you've met Tigger. Well, I know about Tigger for sure. There's lots of Tiggers in the world. Did you tell Tigger that Christopher Robin wanted you to leave the honey pot on the shelf for a good reason? Well, I would have, except you see, I suddenly got this, don't tell me, you got a rumbly in your tumbly and forgot all about saving the honey for later. Yes, and Tigger danced so high he hit his head on the ceiling, hit the shelf, and he and the honey tot came tumbling down. I'm sure that made quite a mess. Yes, and now Tigger isn't able to dance very high because his tail keeps sticking to the floor. Well, I can only imagine. Well, don't worry, nothing's going to slow Tigger down for long, I'm sure. He's going to be his bouncy self before you know it. Yes, but I'm afraid my honey tot will never be the same. Well, it reminds me of a story. Pooh, would you like to hear it? If I must. So once upon a time there was the mayor of a big city, and he was very busy, and so busy that he'd forgotten to eat that day, and decided to stop at a restaurant for a cup of soup, of delicious soup, while he was on his way to a very important meeting. Please excuse me, he said, rushing past everyone else to the front of the line, but I'm on my way to a very important meeting. And since everyone knew he was the mayor, they politely let him pass. And once he got up to the counter, he said, "Please give me a cup of your best soup to go. I'll eat it in my limousine." And the woman working the counter was the owner and the cook, and was famous for having the best soup in town. It must have been made with honey. Probably. I don't know, though, because she never told anyone her secret recipe. "Wait here," she told the mayor. And the mayor waited while she went into the kitchen, and waited, and waited, and waited some more, becoming increasingly agitated until he finally shouted, "Where's my soup? I told you I'm in a hurry." The owner poked her head out of the kitchen door and said, "Just a few moments more." And then she disappeared again. So the mayor waited a bit longer, and a bit longer, and a bit longer, growing hungrier and hungrier. "Please," he said in a softer voice, "I'm a very important person and I have an important meeting to go, but I'm also very hungry." "I think he's going to get there late." Maybe so. So the owner poked her head out of the kitchen door again and said, "It's almost ready, just a moment longer," and then disappeared again. And the mayor looked at his watch, and he knew he should just leave, but he also heard the rumbly in his tumbly, and so did everyone else. So he knew he better eat something before he went on to his meeting. Just then the kitchen door swung open, and the owner came out and gave him the cup of soup. He was in such a hurry that he slapped a $20 bill on the counter and said, "Keep the change," then took the lid off the cup and began drinking it as he headed for the door. But at the very first sip, he stopped, forgetting about his meeting, and he turned to the owner and said, "This is the most amazing soup I've ever tasted. What's your secret?" She said, "I never give away my secret recipe, but I will tell you the most important ingredient if you'll sit down at the table long enough to enjoy it." The mayor looked at his watch, and he looked at the soup, and he took another sip. Then he called his office and said, "Please cancel my meeting. Something very important has come up." Then he sat down, and he took another sip of soup and asked, "What's the most important ingredient?" "It's patience," said the owner. "May I have another cup?" he asked. "But aren't you in a hurry?" she said. "No," the mayor said, "I have all the time in the world." Yeah. Do you understand that, Pooh? Yes, but I'm not sure what it is I understand. Well, it means that some of the best things in life are worth waiting for. And do you know what one of the best things in life is? Honey. That's right. And if you do as Christopher Robin suggests by putting some of your honey away for later, it's going to taste even sweeter. Yes, but all this talk of honey has given me a rumbly in your tumbly, which is very difficult to say, by the way, without moving your lips. Tell you what, Pooh, if you'll be patient just a little bit longer, I'll get you some honey after the service, and we'll find some glue to fix your honey pot good as new. Just don't let Tigger anywhere near it, okay? No, Tiggers. Tiggers and honey don't go together. Keep that in mind. Thank you, Pooh.
For the meditation, words from Albert Einstein. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle.
Well, today the choir is going to sing some quips by Mark Twain, and the collection is called Points to Ponder Upon. And we have been working very hard on enunciation, so hopefully you will be able to understand. But if you miss one, just come up and talk to me after the service. The other thing is, you noticed that we sang a piece called Peace in 12 Languages. If you didn't know all the languages, you can also come up and ask. There you go.
We like a man to come right out and say what he thinks. Say what he thinks. Say what he thinks. We men should come right out and come right out and say what he thinks. We ought never to do wrong.
neighboring saloon and does not hear her. Put all your eggs in one basket. Put all your eggs in one basket. Put all eggs in just one basket. Put all your eggs in one basket. Put all your eggs in one basket. Put all your eggs in just one basket. And watch that basket.
Thank you. There's been lots of conversations already today. Conversational singing, conversational readings, so fits well. And now it's time for conversations with Todd. And the only thing that I like to leave off the table is any questions that would be more suitable for a church board meeting or annual meeting or something. But otherwise, I'll entertain just about anything. I do want to start with a question that somebody emailed me who actually live streams with us our first service and doesn't have another means of sending his questions. But this is from Stephen Pierce in Palouse, Washington, who asks, is hierarchy evil? I sometimes cross paths with liberal persons, such as I am, who think it causes trouble or isn't a good way to organize things. My opinion is that it is the way of the world, and like Paradise Lost, hierarchy ranges from lowly to sublime, and is the organizing principle in the natural world as well. Am I wrong? Is hierarchy inherently bad? What do you think? As they say in the radio land, I'll take my answer off the air. Okay, thanks, Stephen. First of all, I think you're right. There are things that are inherently hierarchical, and a lot of creatures, organize hierarchically. Other apes, for sure. Wolves, birds, have pecking orders. And then there's even, and I'm not a scientist, but there's hierarchical structures in biology, inside of our bodies. There's hierarchical structures used in engineering. So yeah, I would say that hierarchy can be a very practical and good. There is some natural nature expresses itself at times through hierarchy. I'll put it that way. And nature is neutral. It's not evil and it's not good. Sometimes it presents itself in beautiful vistas, and sometimes it presents itself in devastating earthquakes. And that's how nature works. So for me, the real question really, when it comes to ethics, we have to take a couple steps back from the immediate question and ask ourselves what is ethical to begin with, what is right and wrong to begin with. As a liberal, as part of a liberal religion, my ethics go back to the Enlightenment period. As many of you have heard me say before, to what Kant called, Immanuel Kant, the Enlightenment philosopher, called the categorical imperative. That thing which can guide us in every circumstance, in every situation. And so he said you have to find that categorical imperative. And for him, the categorical imperative was the first version, the early version of the humanistic ethic, which is that nobody should ever be used as a means to somebody else's end, but should be considered an end within themselves. And that has changed or been reworded over the years. I like Erich Fromm's expression of the humanistic ethic, which is that everything we do in our societies, all of our rules, all of our organizations, our institutions, our societies, our businesses, our education, should be for the purpose of achieving two goals. The first is human welfare in general, and the second is individual unfolding. So when our systems are not doing that, when our systems are not working towards benefiting humanity in general and opening the way for individuals to fully unfold and express themselves, fully achieve their potential, those systems are failing. So we have to ask ourselves about hierarchy, and what are those at the top of the hierarchy doing? What are their ethics? So I don't think that one of the things that the Enlightenment brought about was what we call the rule of law, and it was the first time that we know of, at least in human history, where those at the top of the hierarchy were actually governed by rules themselves. They weren't just initiating rules based upon what they wanted for themselves, what would benefit themselves. It was expected that they would legislate in ways that would benefit human welfare and individual unfolding, individual freedom and potential, that sort of thing. So I think the first thing we have to ask in any system is that humanistic ethic present? Is that what our leadership are committed to? Is that what they're striving to achieve? Because that the absence of that ethic is, for me, what evil is. As a person whose ethic is based on the humanistic ethic, any violation of the humanistic ethic is what I would call evil. So hierarchical systems that are not rooted in the humanistic ethic, the genuine goal and attempt to promote human welfare and individual unfolding, are evil. And those hierarchical systems would be. Preferably, we would have democratic systems that are creating the hierarchies, right? We create legislators, we create rulers, we create presidents, or appoint them anyway, as individuals who say, you must act now in the interest of society. If they don't do that, then I think anything is evil. And I this is, to me, the fundamental problem with any system. Communism would work, socialism would work, capitalism would work, if the underlying ethic in all of those systems were the humanistic ethic. Where that is absent, all those systems fail. So the fundamental need for me is, again, this commitment to making whatever we do count towards promoting human welfare and individual unfolding. And by the way, I would just say one more thing, that by human welfare, I'm not speaking anthropocentrically, right? That is only for humans. Because humans are not whole, we don't fully unfold unless we recognize our relationships and our connections and our dependence upon all that is and all of our relationships. So the earth, other creatures, are part of what it means to be a whole human being, to be a well human being. Caring for those things, protecting those things, respecting those things. Okay, so that is that response. Thank you very much, Stephen. I hope that was helpful, or at least something. So I want to go to our friends who are Zooming first, because you said you've had some stuff prepared, and so we'll have or next, I should say, and then I'll move into the room if there's any questions here. So who's up? I don't see a hand, so maybe Terry, you can point us to whoever's.
Well, actually, I hope I'll get my question, but Dick did have his hand up, so I think Dick should go ahead.
Okay, we'll come to you next, Terry. So Dick, we'll come to you in two moves. Okay, go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, I'm interested in your take on the current state of what we might call the geopolitical world. I'm thinking, for example, of these balloon incidents are looking more and more like the Keystone Cops. And then I'm thinking about, we all thought that the Cold War had ended in 1990, and now it's come back with a vengeance in the hot war. And now it's not the Republicans that are the war party, it's the Democrats that are the war party. And propaganda seems to be taking over where we once thought we had news. The world seems to be kind of topsy-turvy. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the world has been topsy-turvy for a long time, and it's not just topsy-turvy, it's like spinning out of control at times, you know, it's just so hard to keep up with. Yeah, as far as recent events, you know, shooting down balloons and that sort of thing, I don't even know what to make of it. I'm not going to make many judgments here because I don't really know what it is they shot down. Apparently they don't either. It seems like it was just some experiments and you know, I mean, I just don't want to judge the people who are making those decisions right now because I don't have the answers. I would say, you know, from my limited perspective, it would not be wise to go around shooting everything out of the sky that we've suddenly, you know, pointed our radar at to find that are in lower altitudes and smaller objects, because you know, people do have legitimate experiments going on. Who knows what else might be up there that gets shot down? So I wouldn't think that's a good idea. But yeah, I mean, the difference between now and the Cold War, I think, is that prior to the Cold War, the divisions between Americans weren't as pronounced, right? It's like the Cold War gave us all this enemy to fear and to project our anger and anxiety onto, just as I think it did for the Russians and others around the world. And we had very limited communications, not any ability to communicate with folks easier. As you heard me say earlier, you know, we've only been in touch with our partner church since the Cold War ended and the Eastern Bloc opened up and we could actually communicate. And communication's only gotten, you know, even more pronounced since then because of all the technology that allows us to communicate freely or at least very affordably in a variety of ways. We have video everywhere, so we can see what's going on in other parts of the world. When we see what's happening in Ukraine, it becomes a global story. When children get stuck, you know, in a cave in the southeast, you know, that's something that the whole world, they become the children of the whole world. We want to see them rescued. So it's kind of a different world right now. And I think that it is actually the noise of the communications that is leading to most of this. In other words, you know, it's like when you're in a very noisy room, you walk in and there's all this chatter and you can't make sense of any of it, right? It doesn't. Even though there's lots of people talking, none of it makes any sense. And so the only way to function in that environment is to go stand in front of one small group of people that you can focus on one conversation and everything else gets shut out. And I think that's what's happening around the world right now. Is you know, there's so much information. There's information overload. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's false. We can pick and choose what feels safe and just cling to it without any responsibility to facts and to evidence and to thinking things through, to reason. And I think that's what's causing most of the division. But it's here in our country. I mean, the people in our own country are just as divided, or I should say countries. You know, I mean, just that whole term, right? Countries. You know, when we think about you know, America, we often think of the United States, at least if we're U.S. citizens. But Canada and Mexico and places south of there are also part of the North American community. But in the United States, as in some of these other countries, in North American countries, there's political divisions that absolutely never existed before. I mean, what we see, happening in Congress now during, when the president is giving his annual address and a State of the Union address, and people start verbally attacking the president. We're getting very close to open hostility amongst our legislators. Something we only witnessed in other countries in the past, So I think the world is divided. We're in a very noisy space. It doesn't make sense to us anymore, mostly because we're a global society. We don't have structures in place to be a global society, and we're just all trying to find the one little space where the world will make sense to us, and we're pulling farther and farther apart from each other. And that's not just political polarization in our country, but this is, in my opinion, the rise of identitarianism, where people are moving into identity groups rather than saying the solution to our prejudices and misunderstandings are the same solution it's always been, to widen the circle of inclusion. It's now, we're going to go over here, you go over there, you go over there. We're too different to possibly understand each other. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's just upside down. I would say that it's sort of like it's topsy-turvy, like it keeps flipping. You can't make any sense of it, and that is really the biggest problem with the world. And I would go back to what I said last week in my sermon, that the only way to heal this society is through the promotion of the liberal principles of the worth and dignity of every person, which must be expressed by creating systems of greater freedom, reason, and tolerance, and that will fix it. That's the only thing that can. We can't, we can't bomb the country next door if we believe in tolerance and we believe in human dignity. If those are our fundamental driving factors, and we can't, just say no to every thing that our political opponents want because they're our political opponents, without concern for what are the impacts upon society itself. So it's a complicated question, Dick. I don't think I did a very good job, very cohesive job of responding to it, but my bottom line again would be that it's very chaotic. The world seems more confusing now than it ever has, you're right, and that liberalism is the answer.
Very good answer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So let me open it up to the room here. If there's anybody that has a... Yes, go right ahead.
I was listening to the radio.
By the way, I'll repeat the question or paraphrase it so folks can hear. Yeah.
Or can I be just loud enough?
Well, I don't think our folks who are streaming will hear you, but you can. You want to come up here and ask it? Come on. No? You don't mind? You'll be on camera. Yeah.
I got over my fear a few weeks ago when I was one of the UUs who said...
That's right, you did. Good. Good. Yeah. Go ahead.
Fun.
Stand right up here to the mic and then
Why,
I'll
thank you,
listen.
sir.
You're
Okay.
so welcome.
Several years ago, I was listening to the radio, and it was a program with Bill Moyer. Is it Moyer or Moyers? The old guy.
Bill Moyers, yeah.
There you go. And he was talking about being progressive. And I go, oh my gosh, now I know who I am, because I just don't want to be, I certainly don't want to be Republican, and I've got a little problem with those Democrats, but progressive, that makes sense to me. So my question to you is, when you refer to liberal, in our liberal religion, what is the difference, if any, of liberal versus progressive?
Okay. Good question. All right. Help me out. Who's the author of Don't Think Like an Elephant? Does anybody remember? Lakoff, George Lakoff. So, again, after the Cold War ended, liberalism really became a bad word, because the right really turned that demonization or that need for an enemy onto its own neighbors, right? In other words, onto other Americans, and it was the liberals. And liberals increasingly became a bad word that even liberals began to shy away from, even to this day. I mean, as you heard, say in a sermon a few weeks ago, in the 1930s and 40s and even 50s, everybody wanted to be liberal, whether they were liberal or not. Right? That's how much it is. That's how much it has changed. But George Lakoff, actually, after he wrote "Don't Think Like an Elephant," got a lot of publicity. He was hired by the Democratic Party to help them reframe things, and he came up with the word progressive, precisely because liberal was seen as something negative. Okay, so in that sense, there's really not any difference. It's just another way to refer to ourselves, so without the baggage. I don't think progressive actually gets at it, though, because progressive tends to be a word that refers to always moving forward. And liberals certainly are progressive in the sense that they want to move forward. But liberalism is not just about moving forward. It moves forward intelligently, and it moves forward for a particular purpose. And it moves forward in a very certain way, a very specific way. That is a liberal way, by promoting freedom, reason, and tolerance, and practicing those as much as we're humanly able, because we have respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. You will find many progressives today who do not share those values. You will find many progressives today who want to move forward in the old authoritarian, intolerant ways that some liberal organizations, like the labor movement, was widely seen as, that was part of the liberal social agenda. And the labor movement, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, right? It was, hey, everybody should have the greatest, workers should have the greatest claim to their efforts. And they should, not be overworked, and they should have rights, and they should have protections. This was a movement in the early 20th century, and it manifested as the ideologies of socialism and communism. Okay. Now keep in mind, in those days, there were no communist countries, right? Communist China and communist Russia emerged out of that labor movement. It was and it was a remarkable thing, because we didn't have internet, we didn't have global communication systems, but that was a labor movement of the world. That was the International Workers of the World movement. So it was a pretty incredible phenomenon. But unfortunately, in some countries, we saw that just as soon as the labor movement succeeded through a violent revolution, the leaders themselves became very authoritarian. Said, well, we definitely want to preserve human rights, but we're going to have to hold the reins pretty tightly here at the start, so have patience with us. And that has led to two of the most authoritarian regimes, governments, if you will, in American history. So liberals who want to, those who consider themselves liberal, or even those who just simply want to progress in the areas of social justice, of economic reform, of countering the mass funneling of wealth into the hands of just a few, we have to ask ourselves ethically, how do we move there? How do we move in that direction? And if it is just, let's just get there, doesn't matter how, it is not liberal. Liberals have a way about us. We move and walk in a certain way through the world. We make progress in a certain way. We wait and we have patience in a certain way, in a liberal way. So I'm not satisfied with the word progressive for that reason. One, it was an invention. It's become just as demonized by the far right as liberal ever was. I think we should reclaim liberalism. And liberals would do ourselves a favor by first understanding what it means, because it's beautiful when you tell people, yeah, I believe in the worth and dignity, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and that in order to establish that and protect that, we have to create societies with freedom, reason, and tolerance. Okay, now let me go over those real quick. I don't have to go much over freedom, right? Because freedom means free from oppression, but it also means free to speak, free to think for ourselves. So reason is the one that a lot of people don't understand. You think, reason means I have to be able to be logical. Yeah, you should. You should be able to do some basic thinking and not get swayed by the bullshit that is on the internet, because that's what it is, much of it. You can't just read an article and then say, oh my God, it's written down, therefore it must be true. And that's where a lot of the thinking is coming from these days. So we have to understand basic inferences, understand, to look for reasons for the points that are being presented, and then being able to examine, does it make any sense? Is there empirical evidence? Is it coming from a valid source? All those sort of things. That's part of what reason is. But no, the reason was so important to the liberals. And by the way, to the Greeks 2,600 years ago who started it all, the Greek philosophers, who, as you've heard me say before, were the first to try to explain the world in natural rather than supernatural terms, was that they believed that they could. Okay, that's the difference. That's why we have to promote reason in society, because otherwise the authorities have to tell us what to think. If we can't think for ourselves, we need church authorities, we need government authorities, we need party authorities to tell us what we can say and what we must believe and what the truth is, and that the sun revolves around the earth. So reason is really a part of freedom. Reason says, you get to decide. You have the power to think. You don't need a church authority or a government authority or an expert authority to tell you what you must think and what you must say. You can do that. So reason's a big part of it. And then tolerance, of course, is, okay, even though I am the most logical person in the world, and therefore I must be right, I know a lot of you aren't, and I must live in the world with you. I must live peacefully with you. I'm kidding, of course, but you understand. We're going to disagree, no matter how rational we are, but that's okay. And until very recently, Unitarianism and Unitarian Universalism were communities that could get along with our differences. We didn't have this thing where people felt like, oh, this is the thing, right? We have an idea, a belief, and we moralize it. And it could be something really stupid, right? Like where to put the furniture. You will see people that will moralize where to put the furniture. Right? It becomes an ethical thing. It's funny, but we all do it. There's this instinct in us to be righteous, not only right, but righteous. And so we have an idea and we think, I'm righteous, and once I'm righteous, once my ideas are righteous, I have to wipe out anybody who has different ideas because those ideas are evil. And that's happened repeatedly throughout history. So, I'm going to go with liberal. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Terry.
Sure. Thank you. As a former university prof, I know how dependent we are on short answers, term papers, and theses to evaluate students. And the recent spat of the very first generation of sort of literate AI tools has come out, and that if you haven't played with them, they're amazingly accurate, or not accurate, complete. Whether they have errors or not, I don't know. But my question is, for you, Todd, do you think that these AI tools will have any impact on your job or this church or Unitarians in general?
Yes, I think we are on the cusp of another game changer, and within the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to look back and not remember what the world was like without AI. And it's going to be a subtle shift. Right now you're using these chat GBTs and the new Bing one that's made a lot of weird headlines this week. But really, they're just going to automatically become part of the devices we already have. So in some ways, we're going to move seamlessly into these technologies that allow us to even better access information and better understand it. And of course, it's going to really boost our ability to come up with intelligent information, hopefully. Substantial information that can be substantiated and verified. By the way, it's not there yet. Somebody just did, what would Todd Eklof say, and sent me a copy of it. And it had me, being the author of several books, including the Gadfly papers, and then something about bonobos. I've never written any books on bonobos, so. So it was kind of wrong about that, but it's going to get there. It's going to get there very quickly and become more and more accurate. I think the benefit to us is going to be time saving, right? We hear stories of young people cheating and whatnot, but I can remember growing up and we weren't allowed to use calculators in school because it was considered cheating if we couldn't show our work, right? And I hear people say, well, what about people who work the cash register that at a grocery store, they can't do the math anymore, Well, yeah, they don't need to do the math, right? They don't need to do it. So why should they? Why should they learn to do that kind of quick thinking with math if they don't need to? If they needed to, they would do it because that's what they did before these scanners came up. So it gives us time to do other things. Maybe we could write. People can write more books. Or they can write books faster because they can get some basic ideas down, and then start to really edit with that. Just as an example, as far as the work of the church, I'm not quite sure how it's going to impact the work of our church, but I think it will save us a lot of time, and with saving time comes saving resources and saving money. So yeah, I think that it's going to be. It's going to be a benefit. There are certainly some dangers to it. I don't think the dangers are that AI is going to suddenly wake up and decide to take over the world and wipe out humanity. But I think the dangers, we've seen things like, with social media, how much that has really driven our society apart. And so I'm not sure what the unforeseen dangers would be. We may lose some of the abilities. Some say that we now have by relying upon machines to do a lot of our thinking for us. But as long as we're disciplined about using the freedom that it gives us and the time that it gives us, I think that's great. I'll just say one more thing about this. When I was in college, so I'm almost 59 years old, and in those days, you went to the library, right? I can remember we had to take a humanities course, basic humanities. For some reason, we had to study music as part of that, a little bit of music. And part of the test we were going to take in that section of that class required us to be able to identify the sounds of all the instruments in an orchestra. Okay? Right, ridiculous to begin with, right? Even today. So the way that we were to learn this is they had these two little boxes, these these things with one little tiny speaker on it that you could go check out at the library. Only two of them. And this is the oboe. This is the viola. This is the violin. You could hardly hear what it was. It sounded the same. So I, of course, being the rebel that I am, I just would write down Elvis Presley's Blue Suede Shoes, Mormon Tabernacle Choir, because I just thought the whole exercise was absurd. But that was the technology in those days. And an expert was somebody who would actually go to a library and find as much as they could that was written about one subject. And then if we wanted to find out something about that subject ourselves, we'd go to that expert who had spent maybe their whole lives in a library continuing to research this one thing. That's how we got information. It was very hard. You'd go to a class to hear an expert talk about it, or you try to, you try to find, get in contact with them, read their books, their papers, whatever. But it was very hard to access information. Now all of us can do it, as quickly as pulling out a device from our pockets. And that has, I think it has made me smarter, not dumber. And it's given me a lot of time that I would not have had, and an ability to understand a variety of topics in my life rather than just focus on one thing. So it's made life richer, and I hope that's what artificial intelligence will do for us. And, maybe someday we'll have an AI write a sermon and see what it looks like. Okay, hopefully that was helpful, Terry. I'm going to do one more. I'm realizing we're a little bit out of time here, so Alan, go ahead.
Well, in reference to experts, an expert is somebody who can basically thread the bullshit and get it out of the discussion and down to the point of what is accurate, what is truthful, what is reliable, what is valid. You still need experts in anything. It's a whole project I was working on the last couple of months. Man, you've got so many experts out there, at some point you start to wonder who's jerking you around and who's leading you to the right.
Yeah. So Alan, I'm going to interrupt just because a lot of people can't hear you, and I just want to make sure people know. Alan's mentioning that we still need experts, but there's an awful lot of experts out there. We need experts to hopefully help us decipher some of the clutter of information that's out there. And we do, and we do. But at the same time, from a philosophical standpoint, you can find experts that will contradict each other all the time, and that's part of the epistemological problem of life, is dealing with the reality that it's very difficult to know absolute truth. So, okay, real quickly, Judy, if you have
I wanted to talk a little bit about covenanting.
a little bit about covenanting.
Covenanting. When I grew up in the Unitarian Church in Indianapolis, and above the pulpit is the church's covenant, which I could say, which I still know. Covenant every Sunday morning in the church to reaffirm our beliefs, our togetherness beliefs. And I know there's a big controversy in the UUA about covenant.
Yeah.
Explain it all.
Okay. So that's a tough one for me to explain in a few minutes. So I'll just real quickly say. So Judy's question is about covenanting. She grew up in a UU church that they would say their covenant every morning. She could still cite it, and that there's a controversy in the UUA now about covenanting. Yes, I would just quickly say that our religion has long been defined as a liberal religion, not a covenantal religion. We have made use of this term covenant from time to time. In the UUA bylaws, there's the covenant that says that we as members of this organization, will affirm what we call our 7 principles. There are churches that create covenants of right relationships, of how we expect to work with each other. What is happening now is the Unitarian Universalist Association is trying to redefine our religion as a covenantal religion, not a liberal religion, but a covenantal religion. And their use of the term covenant seems to be dogma, right? They won't say we're a dogmatic religion. They'll say we're a covenantal religion because it sounds so sweet, so euphemistic. By the way, it's the misappropriation of the Jewish religion. So just so you know, they're always on everybody else for misappropriating things. But bottom line is they want to create a new system in which congregations have to recovenant every year or two. That would require us to prove that we've been abiding by this covenant, whatever it is. We haven't made the covenant yet, but we're supposedly under it already. And then if not, we don't know what's going to happen. What if we don't satisfy the criterion? I don't know. But it's just to me it's just another use of euphemistic language to try to redefine us as an authoritarian dogmatic religion. Not a great note to end on, but I'm already 15 minutes over, so maybe, what's that? Yeah, let's just go to our closing song, Shalom, and then Candace will close with our benediction.
Please
Oh, wait a minute. It's the other way around. Let Candace do the benediction. I'll walk down
Good.
here
Good.
where I can greet folks, and then you do the benediction. Okay, thank you, everybody, very much.
We cannot control the way people interpret our ideas or thoughts, but we can control the words and tones we choose to convey them. Peace is built on understanding, and wars are built on misunderstandings. Never underestimate the power of a single word, and never recklessly throw around words. And one right word or one kind word can grant you the heavens and open doors. Susie Kasim. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.